for NHS.
For Gordon and his family, the backdrop to this budget is bleak. A cost of living crisis fuelled by high inflation. Far from festive.
What are you noticing in the shops in terms of prices?
Well, stuff are going up. It's not even like 10, 20 pence. It's like 50, 60 pence in some things. So you've obviously got to go to all the different shops to see where you can get the cheapest stuff now.
What do you think about the idea of them putting up tax to get more money for, say, the NHS?
I don't mind paying for something as long as I can see a result. But when I'm paying for something and I don't see a result or where it's going, then I've got an issue. I've got more money to give, but they're raising my taxes. But when I ask for a wee bit of pay rise, they say there's no more money there. It works both ways.
But that is what's happening, at least for everyone on more than around £43,000 a year. They already pay more in Scotland, 41 pence in the pound. Now that goes up to 42p. The top rate also rises from 46 to 47 pence in the pound, and more people will pay that, with the threshold coming down from £150,000 to £125,000.
Mr Swinney.
But, said the Deputy First Minister, the majority of taxpayers would actually pay less in Scotland.
Within the powers available to us, we will choose a different path. A path which sees the Scottish Government commit substantial resources to protect the most vulnerable people of Scotland from the impact of decisions and policies made by the United Kingdom Government. We choose the path where people are asked to pay their fair share in the knowledge that in so doing they help create the fairer society in which we all want to live.
Will he pledge?
Labour said voters would not accept tax rises if public services declined. The Conservatives made the same point.
And if you widen the tax gap for middle and higher earners in Scotland in comparison with their UK counterparts, you risk undermining the potential for economic growth that this country so desperately needs.
So, Scotland is moving further away from the rest of the UK, setting its own tax rates, striking its own pay deals. This is devolution in action. But a string of recent polls suggests that a majority of voters here want to go even further and become fully independent. Already, this statement is becoming part of that debate. James Cook, BBC News.
John Swinney
Edinburgh.
confirms that the two top income tax rates are increasing to help the NHS.
It is, in short, an extra penny to enable spending on patient care in our National Health Service.
We'll bring you more on the reaction to the Scottish Government's income tax announcement. Income tax for higher earners in Scotland is going up. In short, if you earn more than £43,000 a year, you'll pay more income tax next year. The higher rate will move from 41 pence to 42 pence and the top rate from 46p to 47p. Also, the threshold at which people start paying the top tax rate will drop from its current level of £150,000 to just over £125,000. That's in line with other parts of the UK. In his speech to Parliament, the Deputy First Minister John Swinney said the changes made to income tax would allow the government to increase the amount spent on health and other key areas. The Scottish Conservatives said tax rises would dampen economic growth. There was some drama. The presiding officer delayed the budget for almost an hour to investigate how some details were reported by the BBC before the statement was given to Parliament. Well, our political editor, Glenn Campbell, has this report.
It's hard to enter into the Christmas spirit when you're in charge of the Scottish Government's finances at a time when rising prices are reducing your spending power. At Holyrood, the acting Finance Secretary cannot afford a giveaway budget and has decided he needs to raise more cash to help keep public services going.
We have chosen to use our tax powers again to protect our country from the harm caused by the turmoil of these times.
No change to the starter, basic or intermediate income tax rates or thresholds, but for the better paid,
I have decided to increase the higher and top rates of tax by 1 pence each to 42 pence and 47 pence respectively. As a result, we are asking all those earning more than £43,662 to pay an extra penny in income tax
He's also matching UK plans to lower the earnings threshold for top-rate taxpayers to just over £125,000 as part of a tax-raising budget that concerns the Conservatives.
If you raise taxes, Mr Swinney, the public wants to know why they see only cuts and a deterioration in the delivery of public services.
People will not accept a rise in tax bills if all they see is further decline of their services after 15 years of the SNP's mismanagement of them.
And we will support you every single step of the way.
The trades unions, striking for better pay in the private and public sectors, have been campaigning for even bigger tax rises.
We've not seen the sort of redistribution that we would have liked to have seen within a radical budget for these times, but I would say that the government's instincts are going in the right direction on this.
Edinburgh shoppers have contrasting views.
With the current cost of living crisis, it's hardest hit people are not the highest earners, so you have to find money somewhere.
I think it's the middle people who actually sometimes are harder hit by these taxes because they're just the middle. They're not high, they're not low, they're no one's priority really.
In other key tax announcements, there'll be a business rates freeze on the basic rate, a transaction tax increase on second home purchases with a supplement rising from 4 to 6%, and there will be no council tax freeze with local authorities given full freedom to set rates. Councils are to get an extra £500 million to help them maintain bin collections and other local services. The NHS is the biggest winner with a £1 billion budget increase next year as it struggles to clear huge backlogs. The £25 weekly child payment will stay, with other Holyrood-controlled benefits going up in line with inflation. Putting up taxes was not in the SNP's Holyrood manifesto last year.
I can confirm that our intention is to freeze the rates of income tax throughout the next Parliament.
A pledge the First Minister argues has been overtaken by events.
We are in times right now that are very different to the times even in the Scottish Parliament election last year.
In the grip of an economic chill, striking a budget balance is far from easy.
Glenn joins us now. You got wind of the details of the budget before it was even announced, Glenn. That caused some upset in Parliament?
Yeah, you could say that. I was thinking back, though, to the autumn statement at Westminster. Most of the key details the Chancellor announced were well known through media reporting in the days before his statement. To be fair, the Scottish budget has been kept a lot tighter, but when the BBC established some of the key tax details in the hours before the statement, Holyrood's presiding officer was so cross she suspended proceedings in Parliament to investigate. The Deputy First Minister John Swinney has apologised to her for some details going public in advance, although he stressed that he didn't authorise anybody to release information. The Conservatives and others are calling for a leak inquiry. To be honest, all of this is a sideshow. The reason I think this budget will be one of the most memorable and significant in Holyrood's short history is because of the tax changes, the significant tax changes and the big political choice that it contains.
Indeed, and picking up one of the points you made towards the end of your report there, how big a deal is it for the government to have gone against what was set out in the SNP manifesto?
Well, the manifesto is your contract with voters if you are a politician or a political leader. And to be clear, the SNP said that their aim, their intention was not to make any changes to income tax rates throughout the course of this Parliament. They did leave themselves a bit of wiggle room by saying that they needed flexibility if circumstances changed, and they are saying that's what's happened, that circumstances in the economy are very, very different now and could not have been predicted. Of course, they're being criticised by the Conservatives and others who think making higher earners pay more could be a drag on economic recovery. However, on the other side of the argument, trade unions and anti-poverty campaigners have welcomed what they've done, even though they don't think the changes go far enough. I think the political calculation by ministers is that the pain, political and financial, would be much greater for them if they'd not taken this route.
Glenn Campbell, thank you very much indeed. A lot to unpack in what was announced today, and we'll get to our business and economy editor Douglas Fraser to do just that in a minute. But in the meantime, our reporter Ian McInnes has been out and about near Inverness to ask people there what they feel about today's budget.
It's a Christmas wonderland at the Winterwoods Experience on the outskirts of Inverness, as these children make their all-important lists. But ahead of the big day, everyone's feeling the economic pinch.
To consider things in far more. For example, like coming here today, this is a really special treat.
Well, a whole lot of us have had to cut back how much we're spending, you know, extra fuel costs, heating costs.
Definitely watching the pennies more, definitely.
On John Swinney's list of priorities on budget day, an increase in taxes for those earning over £43,500 or so. The people we spoke to here today were not in favour of the rises.
People that earn more ultimately will pay more tax anyway. I don't think there should be a higher percentage because already they put more in because it's a percentage of their earnings, so I don't think it should be going up at all.
It'll maybe go a small way to help and relieve the cost of living crisis, but I have very strong opinions on what other things could be done. There's just so much more that can be done other than taxing people who are actually working for a living.
They're making it harder for anybody that's trying to better themselves in a job and a career and stuff, you know. Just quite disappointing to see, to be honest.
I think it seems terribly unfair. I'm very much not in the high earner bracket, but I feel if people have done well for themselves and have made a good career for themselves, then having half of it taken off them seems terribly unfair.
There was a welcome, though, for an uplift in line with inflation in benefits.
It's never enough. It never has been and it never will be, so a 10% increase is not going to cut it, I don't think, for those families that are really struggling. This is why we've got food banks, why we've got charity shops, because it really is never enough for a family to survive on.
People who are relying on benefits need all the help they can get, so I certainly have no objection to them getting as much extra as has been announced and hopefully even more.
A budget won't put a smile on everyone's face. The challenge is, of course, to deliver on services while balancing the books in these challenging times. Ian McInnes, reporting Scotland, near Inverness.
Our business